Will the people who normally buy the product be able to do so? Or will there be a tariff attached to it by Mr. Trump that will dissuade people from buying it?
With Trump pushing to bring back aggressive tariffs, Wolff warns this isn't just about taxing foreign goods, it's about shifting the burden onto working people.
And from that, you would have to subtract whatever businesses are going out of business because of the tariffs. And I'm going to give you some examples.
He explains how tariffs, while marketed as protection for American jobs, often lead to higher prices, trade wars, and economic instability.
That the tariff is a burden on China. No, China doesn't pay the tariffs against China. Americans do.
And the real winners, big corporations and political elites. Wolff breaks it down clearly. These policies aren't about helping everyday Americans. They're about deepening the system that keeps wealth at the top. Before you cheer for America First slogans, listen to what this economist has to say. The stakes are high, and the consequences could hit your wallet harder than you think.
It did that on purpose to bring them there, because not too much else goes on in Delaware. I'm being a little mean, but I want you to understand, he's a senator from a corporate state. He's the senator. It's a little bit like being Mr. Schumer. That's a senator from another corporate state, namely Wall Street. So, and you are governed by all of that. You pretend otherwise, but that's who you are. And that's who he was. And he was never very important, and he was always, and also ran. And it made perfect sense for Obama, who is a different in another way, because he's brown, to take somebody who is so traditional and make him vice president, which is how he becomes president. It's just, it's odd this way.
Wolff believes this structure promotes equality, reduces exploitation, and builds stronger, more resilient communities.
So then what does he achieve? Well, a certain return to normalcy, but it solves none of the problems and therefore doesn't undo the support for Trump. It maintains it. If anything, it strengthens it. Despite every legal maneuver imaginable against Trump, still, if the race is close, which most people say it now is, that's Mr. Biden's fault. He didn't do.
He is also a sharp critic of American economic policy, particularly the growing influence of corporate interests in politics and the erosion of public institutions.
I'm interested in understanding the history because everything that's happening now is a product of that which happened before. It's a complicated product. These things are very multiple in their determinations. But when you try to unravel why things happen, you do understand them better. It gives you a more satisfying story about what is happening in the world you inhabit. And if you're of a certain mind, I am, that's very important, very satisfying to understand what's happening. I understand there are other folks who don't want to, consciously or unconsciously, who are frightened about what they may learn, who are worried about where it might point.
At the core of Wolff's thinking is the belief that modern capitalism, particularly in the United States, is deeply flawed in how it distributes wealth and power.
I'm talking, when I talk about silence, I'm talking about what I think goes by the name mainstream media or mainstream discourse. It's really still quite rare, but it exists, no question. And in podcasts and in the kinds of programs like yours, and indeed I do programs about this all the time on the radio and on YouTube and all the rest. So there are people picking it up, yes. And my hope is there will be more of them, and that eventually it'll force its way on to a broader agenda. Number one. Number two, Mr. Biden's presidency was, for me, the reassertion of the same old, same old. In other words, it was the reaction against Trump. 4 years of Trump provoked a reaction. Let's go back to what we had. Because Mr. Biden is like a poster child.
He supports the idea that workers, rather than distant shareholders or executives, should have control over the companies they work for.
He's been in the Senate from day one. Been there for, forever. I remember as a college student, his name came up because I paid attention to things like that. Number one. Number two, he's the senator from no place. Delaware. And I don't mean no disrespect to Delaware.
I'm not sure I've ever met anyone from Delaware.
Exactly. Delaware is a place where corporations go, and they have gone there for a century because it has the friendliest laws of any of the 50 states to corporations.
In this model, decisions about pay, operations, and business direction would be made collectively.
Marx is famous for something called the Theses on Feuerbach, who was a philosopher that Marx grew up with and was critical of. And probably the most famous of his theses on Feuerbach, the short couple of pages, is the one that runs like this. Philosophers have interpreted the world. The point is to change it. And that would be, I would say, how I come at all of this. To untangle your question a little bit, beyond not understanding what the word predict really means, I certainly make no claim whatsoever to have that capacity, and I find the claims of others in that direction to be humorous, whether they intend it or not. I can't predict the future, nor can you, nor can anybody else.
His work aims to make complex economic ideas accessible to the public, often through his media platform, Democracy at Work, and his radio program, Economic Update.
But for me, as for many, understanding the world you live in is a more satisfying way of living in it than not. And so I spend a lot of time, a lot of effort, understanding how we got to where we are as a way to understand what's unfolding. Again, not to have some prediction about the future. There are always large parts of the explanation of anything that we can't manage. It's too complicated. Human beings can't do that. Never have, and don't do it now either. It's what a whole list of thinkers meant by the term overdetermination. In other words, things that happen, anything, are shaped by so many other things going on that the so many is handled by the mathematical symbol infinity. And you're not going to grasp infinity. That's the whole point of the symbol of infinity. It's the other side of what you can do.
For Wolff, the 2008 financial crisis was not just a moment of economic mismanagement. It was a symptom of a systemic failure in how capitalism operates.
Except in politics, where we don't need it. 2 is more than enough. We want 15 kinds of toothpaste in the supermarket on that shelf. We want green toothpaste and toothpaste with little blue speckles in it and toothpaste that'll make your nose shine as well as your teeth. We want all that choice and all of our choice. But when it comes to politics, two is good. All we need is two. Two that are colorless copies of each other most of the time, at least in my lifetime, post-World War II. Trump blows that up. Trump says, no.
Wolff's alternative is rooted in worker cooperatives and democratic forms of enterprise.
So that's the first thing. The second thing that I find important, Mr. Biden had developed over those many, many years of being a leading politician in this system, certain fixed loyalties that seem to be beyond question. Sort of interesting. One is his loyalty to what is called the neocon view of the world. The United States is the beacon of freedom, and the Soviet Union is, China is second, and we fight this war forever.
According to Wolff, real democracy must include economic democracy, where people have control over their workplaces and financial futures.
He's right there cheering them on. He may walk that comment back a day or two later, but you can see the instinctual, before they can put a muzzle on the guy, out it comes. Interesting. And the third, contradictory a bit, is his feeling that he needs to show and be friendly to organized labor. So if I had to pick the most positive social contribution he made, it was by putting progressive people onto the board of the National Labor Relations Board, which has changed the way the unionization drive has emerged in the United States during his presidency.
Whether Democrat or Republican, he asserts, presidents often cater to Wall Street, major corporations, and wealthy donors.
I'm not going to give him credit, he didn't make that happen, but he gave it a greater space by reducing the blockage worked by the NLRB under Trump and Bush and those people, even Obama. He gave them, and he just said, there's a strike began 2 days ago on the East Coast ports here, the Atlantic Ocean. The dock workers stopped working, striking. And his first statement was, the employer should pay them more. Whoa, that's that instinct. That's good for you, Netanyahu. Whoa, don't do that. You don't do that. You're the president of another country. You want to cease fire. You want the two sides. What are you doing? And they walk him back, and he then, but everybody sees. Well, in a parallel way, he does that for labor. And it has made it easier for the upsurge in labor militancy to happen in this country.
Wolff has spent decades writing and lecturing on economic theory, labor, and class dynamics.
One thing I think Trump does, I'm not sure whether the terms positive and negative work so well, but one thing that he does that I welcome is he opens the space within American political leadership for something other than what in European countries is called center-left, center-right. European countries, most of them, have multiple parties. They don't have two parties the way we do. They have 6 or 9 or 3, but they don't have 2. They haven't constricted their political space so that you're voting for Tweedledum or Tweedledee. Americans make a bigger deal than Europeans about we're stand for freedom of choice.
He regularly comments on the privatization of essential services like healthcare, education, and housing, arguing that profit-driven models often fail to meet public needs.
He seems committed to that. To put people like Blinken and Sullivan and the others in those dominant positions in the international management advisory function means you are a neocon. So that's interesting. The second idée fixe he had was that the support of Israel has to be fundamental. And yes, they helped him in his political career, for sure. But it's more than that. There's some kind of loyalty there that is beyond question. You can see it each time the Israelis do something